had discussed yesterday. So in our yesterday session, we had a brief understanding of what CFD is and what are the different modules. We had discussed like pre-processing, solving, post-processing on theory we had discussed, and then later on using a video for tutorial guide for you. On ANSYS Fluent, we had discussed about how to go through the geometrical part, geometry preparation, then meshing part, how the UI works, and what are the minimum basic requirements for a simple simulation. And we were in continuation of our discussion, but due to time limit, we were unable to continue with our discussion. So I'll be taking forward the discussion at that point itself, where we were discussing about the setup. And based on the that idea, we'll move ahead and we'll complete our laminar flow simulation. And I'll also tell you what is the physical significance of that simulation, what changes we are going to do in the setup. Apart from that, we'll discuss in brief about what cooling fans are, what's general application is, and a primary setup for a cooling fan, what are the required inputs that are for the simulation. Then with another help of with the help of another video, we'll be discussing regarding how the cooling fan analysis actually is done. During that analysis, during that explanation, I'll also talk about a reference frame approach and what it is. Okay, so without any ado, let's start with the session. Please confirm if my screen is visible or not.
Not yet.
Okay.
Now, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So in our last session, I'll continue from this point where we were discussing about how the setup is done. We were in the middle of discussion of the setup, but to give you a fresh idea, we'll start from setup, starting from the setup point. So after our meshing is completed, we will see these green ticks, and I've talked about this yesterday. We say these green ticks whenever we are done with one module or one component of this whole system. It will show us a green tick if it's correct. If it will show a question mark or a lightning bolt if it still needs updating or still needs work, and it will show us this refresh when we are about to work in the setup, or when we have completed the previous module and we are about to go into the next one. Then it will show us the refresh button. So it's a standard procedure where you have to either double click on the setup module, or you'd right click and click on edit, where it would take you to the setup GUI of the ANSYS Fluent. Before that, this pop-up will appear. Here you would go, you choose the double precision option. It's not mandatory, but it helps your analysis, and it helps your solution to be more accurate. Now you would select processing option, either serial you would select, or you would select parallel. In case you have a higher computer system capability, which is either you must have like 4 cores, 8 cores, based on your computer capacity and its specification, you can choose the number of parallel processes that you can run. The only advantage for parallel processing is just that you will be able to do a particular simulation more fast. Basically, instead of a single core working at a single particular time, all of your cores, like 4 or 8 there may be, they will work simultaneously to complete your iterations, and it will work parallelly. So basically, each core will have a 1/8 of the task assigned to that particular core if you have 8 core in your system, and then based on that it will work. Basically, this is our setup for ANSYS GUI, in which you can see there are different components. As at the right hand side, at the leftmost part, you'd see the tree, in which all of your operations are stored, all of your features are stored, which you can access. Also, same features you can access from this upside bar, which is the horizontal bar that you are seeing, like in the setting up domain, setting up physics, user defined. If you have user defined functions that you're going to use or import, then solving part, post processing part. Also, we can actually view our results, or our theoretical results and our graphical results in setup itself after completing the solution, after going for the solution. Okay, so then only we'll be able to set up. So basically, setup is a combination of solution and results also. But in results tab, it's specifically dedicated because it has a detailed view, and it has a simplified GUI where you can easily, without having to deal with many many processes or many steps, you can easily view and you can easily work with the contours and streamlines and results in turn. Now, here in the general tab, you would see that you have this mesh option, you have solver option, you have time option, right? So in any kind of analysis, for specifically speaking about physical analysis, like computational fluid dynamics per se, we have two types of analysis, or we have two types of states. One is a steady state, and second is a transient state. In steady state, you would work with variables which are not dependent on time but space. And in transient, you would depend on time. Your variables basically depend on time. So if I'm talking about a simulation that I'm going to do for velocity, then my velocity would change with respect to space, that is in x direction or y direction or z direction. My velocity will be changing. So I will have different values of different components of velocities in x, y, z direction. So that's why we apply momentum equations in there to consider that change or to consider the steady state. But we don't have any time dependent variables which change with respect to time, which change with respect to at a particular instance in time. So that's considering our simulation is simple. We'll go for steady state, and in steady state we'd go for pressure based. And there are two types of solvers that we can use. One is pressure based, one is density based. So generally we use pressure based, and velocity formulation we keep it as absolute, because we have like a dedicated velocity. We do not derive any velocity from any other components. We use absolute velocity. For relative velocities you have to define. It takes the software will generally take it relative to the other input parameters that are mentioned. So that's about the general idea over here. Also, you can check your mesh over here in the general tab, where you can scale your mesh. Basically, you can scale your object for lesser computational time, so that if you want your simulation to be done or your calculation to be done faster, then you can actually scale your model to 1:5 or 5:1 based on your requirement. So 1:5 meaning if you have 1 mm as your dimension, let's suppose 1 unit as your dimension, then it becomes 5 times that. So, and vice versa. If you have 5 as your dimension, if you give 5:1, so that in that case you would have scaled it down by 5. So that's how it will work. It generally depend upon you selecting options only. I'm just giving you a basic understanding on how you can scale your mesh. Apart from that, you can check your mesh, what changes that that you had done previously in the meshing UI, are they consistent with your solver? Are they compatible with your solver? So we can actually check that. Then in report quality, you can check your quality of your mesh, if it's proper or not. Basically, quality majorly depends on the size of the element of what we are constructed. So if you have a very large element which is disordered, or which is not in which is basically giving you a wrong answer, or a possibly inaccurate answer, for that case it will check and it will report some of the elements. It will report your quality of elements. In that case, if it's very bad, then you have to revisit your meshing GUI, resize your mesh, like change the size of your mesh to smaller or finer, and then you would have smaller elements, so that you will have a higher accuracy. Now here you also have the gravity option, which it kind of depends on what kind of analysis you are running. So for steady state and simpler analysis, you generally don't turn on gravity. But if there are advanced options, then in that case, like if you're running with transient option, basically for which are time dependent, in that case you might need to have your gravity on. So that's another thing to take care of. Basically, it adds another variable to your simulation or to your calculation, and that just increases your computational time. So if you are running a simple simulation, then you don't need gravity as much as such as this for laminar flows. It works. So based on a type of analysis, you can either choose based on that. Okay. Now let's move on to the models. So here we would choose the model in which we are going to apply the model basically here. For our simulation, based on our simulation requirement. So my simulation requirement is for laminar flow, I'm going to solve it for. So here there are different models based on different applications. So multi-phase deals with multiple phases at a single time. So let's suppose you have a mixture of oil and liquid, or let's say you are dealing with cavitation in pump. In that case, you would have two phases involved. One is vapor phase and one is liquid phase of the same fluid, right? In your pump, there is a phenomenon that is occurring due to lower vapor pressure. If your vapor pressure falls below your vacuum pressure, in that case, your liquid or your fluid will change its phase. Your liquid, your water will change it to vapor. And in that case, you would use multi-phase to track that. You'd basically identify if cavitation is occurring or not. So in that case, on similar cases, you'd use multi-phase. Similarly, for energy, if there is any kind of energy or temperature change, rise is occurring in your simulation, in your system, then you turn on the energy equation so that it will solve for temperature-based terms or heat transfer-based terms. Then comes viscous laminar. So in viscous, there are multiple options. I won't be going into details of other options. I'll just stick to the viscous laminar. I just gone through the first three because they are pretty much self-explanatory, and energy equation is somewhat most oftenly used with respect to other models. So from our point of view, we are going to look for um, viscous laminar model. So if I just fast forward it a bit, yeah. So when you double click on that viscous laminar, which you are seeing over here, if you double click on there, it will show up this pop up. In here, you would see there are different models which are solving for viscous, which are only incorporated in viscous model. So based on viscosity, there are different, like these are the different models based on nature of flow, behavior of flow, they vary. So there is Pallard Almaraz model, there is Capsulon, Q omega, transitional KKL omega. So based on each of the parameters and based on each of the physics, they have developed these models in the form of equations, and those equations are then predefined, generalized in this software. So we are using the laminar in here. So I have selected laminar flow. For turbulent models, if you want to capture for turbulence, majorly two turbulence models are used, like Epsilon and K omega. But for different kind of modeling, like if you talk about combustion modeling in your automotive vehicles, like for your exhaust systems or for your engine working systems, in that you use Pallard-Almaraz model for accurately capturing the essence of the flue gases and how the temperature varies, and to govern the flow of the flue gases. So that's where Pallard-Almaraz model is generally used. When we talk about now, we'll select the laminar model, click on OK. Also, you can here I have used the K epsilon model, and I have used standard, and I have used standard wall functions. The major reason I have done this to capture the, if there is, ideally there is, if my flow is going to be laminar, then it's going to be laminar. But based on the fluid conditions, based on the velocity conditions, if I'm using a different, like if I'm using a different, if my flow will have turbulence in it, then in that case I need to capture it. So I previously, beforehand, I don't know exactly whether my flow will have turbulence or not, right? So in that case, I have to choose the K epsilon model. And in K epsilon model, also there are different options for standard RNG realizable, and for near wall treatment, how exact I want to, how much I'm focusing on the near wall region. Based on that, I would choose the near wall treatment kind. And based on this, there are different equations are solved. So generally, we'll keep it as same as it is, and then we will move ahead. So yes, we are changing from epsilon to laminar, and then we'll move ahead with the laminar because we are going for laminar flows. That's about it. You had now at this point you have applied your you had set up your simulation to be steady state. You had set up your solver to be pressure based, and you have set up your module, which module you are going to solve it for. So how many equations you are going to solve it for. For each of these models and for each case, The continuity and momentum equations are common. They will be solving for both those equations every single model, because they are the governing equations. They are the basis of fundamental of physics, and they work on those laws. So a real time working of systems will be directly related to that, based on those fundamental principles. So they are by default applied. Now what we have to do is we have to apply the material, right? In our fluid, in our working fluid in the pipe flow domain will be water. So right now the ANSYS, what it does is it generally default takes the fluid as working fluid as air for fluid, and if there are solid parts involved, it takes I think it takes aluminum as their default solid material from that. But if you want to change your material, if you want to add another material to that, so you can just double click on the air, and you would be provided with this UI. You'd be moved over to this UI. If you just see, if you double click on fluid, sorry, if you double click on air, it will open the materials panel, and here if you go to the Fluent database, you will be able to see the working fluid that you are going to work with. Okay, so you can either change your fluid from there, or you can change your fluid from here, right? So based on this, yeah, basically in here in this pop-up you'd change your material type to fluid, then you would scroll down to change your material from water liquid, from air to water liquid, and you would click on copy. So basically this will create another copy of your liquid, and as you might have noticed at the left hand side, you would see now water liquid has been added below the air. So basically we are adding material in this GUI. We remember we have not assigned the material yet. We are just adding the material to the model. Now we'll move on to the next part, which is the cell zone conditions. So for now, I'm only dealing with my negative volume, as I want to recap all the yesterday's talk, as I'm working with negative volume. That is, I'm working with the fluid inside the pipe and not the pipe geometry. So my working fluid will be only single one, and my cell zone condition will be single one, that is type fluid. So when I double click on cell zone condition is basically defines in your overall module or overall domain what type of module it is. Now here it's written FFF underscore solid. The reason is because our modeling, when we had done in the geometry, when we had created the geometry, it was solid. But later on, when we came into meshing domain, and when we have updated the mesh, we have given the name selection and all, then the nature of that component became fluid. So the name remained the same, but the nature of the component became fluid. So if I click over here, you'd see at the bottom, at this particular point, that the type becomes fluid. So basically here you would just click on edit in the cell zone condition, and you change the material from air to liquid. So when you double click on it, you would have this pop-up window appearing from in front of you, where if you go to air, and you can actually change your material. So now we are assigning the material to our cell zone. This is also called as cell zone or domain in which you are working. Okay. Now you have assigned for this FFF underscore solid title domain as fluid. Now we are going to assign the boundary conditions. Boundary conditions basically are the governing conditions which will govern the flow, which will based on which the solution or software will be calculating the other parameters in those equations that I've yesterday mentioned. So if I go based on the naming that we have done, we have inlet, outlet, and wall accurately translated in this setup as we had seen. So in yesterday's talk, I had mentioned about this while giving the name selections in your meshing GUI. You would be giving the names exactly as they are, and that what they identify is their purpose. And for inlet, basically from inlet your flow will go in, that's what's called inlet. From outlet will go out, so it is called as outlet, and wall will be the constraining place which constrains the flow. So that's we have defined. Now here we've defined different constraints to each of the conditions. Based on your analysis, there are different conditions for inlet and outlet which we can use. So in the, just a second, in here in the type part, you would see that velocity inlet is mentioned, but there can be different mentions can be there. Like there can be pressure inlet condition, there can be mass flow inlet condition, volume flow inlet condition. So based on what we can give as an inlet to a fluid flow domain, that way it would take, these are the predefined conditions, you just have to choose. And when you click on edit, it will open up this small panel where you can actually change your magnitude of the velocity, that means the value of the velocity. So it is given as 0.01 in meters per second. Now I know you might have known about laminar flows. Like if your velocity is slow, as slow as this, that is 0.01, then you would have laminar flow for sure. So based on that based on that fundamental understanding and working with these simulations, I know for the fact that for this velocity of this magnitude of velocity, my flow will be generating laminar flow, and there won't be any slight significance of turbulent flow. So I have chosen this velocity magnitude to show you for this analysis. But in other cases, if you do not know, so in that case you have to calculate your Reynolds number based on the velocity, like velocity, density, and dynamic viscosity. So from these three parameters, you'd use rho v mu by rho v L by mu. That formula you would be using for your calculating your Reynolds number, and then you'd be understanding from theoretical perspective that whether your flow will have turbulence in it or not. And then based on that understanding, you choose your model accordingly, either k epsilon, k omega SST, based on that. So I have given my inlet condition. Now I will be moving on to the outlet condition. I won't be, so the interior, that is interior FF solid, it's just a condition. It's mentioned over here. We do not change anything in there. It's actually unchangeable because it's an interior. It only represents the interior for that. Now in outlet, we have the outlet boundary. So in outlet, we only have the outlet boundary. So inlet we have mentioned as velocity inlet, and outlet we have mentioned as pressure outlet. So as we have given the value of velocity, based on that velocity value, it will take, the software will take it as an initial guess, and it will compute other parameters, and our primary focus of the parameters are outlet pressure. So it will calculate outlet pressure based on the inlet velocity that we have provided it to be. And governing this idea, we can also edit our pressure outlet, and we can also limit our outlet conditions for a requirement or based on our requirements. So if I'm giving a particular condition for a operation of a pump per se, then in that case, I would have my outlet pressure predefined as a, if I want to investigate a centrifugal pump that is working in a particular at a particular motor or at a particular facility basically, and it is not working properly, it is not working as efficiently as possible. So what I wanted to investigate in that is what are the problems associated with that pump. So the problems will be majorly if its work is hindering or if its efficiency is not achieved, then it would be due to cavitation. So to observe the cavitation, I would have my outlet pressure predefined, that is that the pump is usually generates, and my that so the based on that outlet pressure I can limit that. I would also know the inlet pressure of my pump, so I would mention that as inlet pressure, and pressure using this pressure condition I would check my velocity, and I would use the multiphase model to identify whether cavitation is occurring or not. So something like that. So on these similar lines, you would have worked with different applications that have different feasibilities. So coming back to this point, so here we don't change anything, you just keep it as pressure outlet, because based on your velocity, it will calculate the pressure at the outlet, and we only want to observe the velocity, how it velocity contour, whether it's properly developing or not. Okay. In the wall, we don't generally change anything. Like you can see in the interior here as well. If you double click on interior for now, you'd see that we don't change anything here. It's just a zone name representing the zone. So in wall, you'd have the in wall, basically we don't change anything in here, but because we don't have any specific wall conditions to mention here. Like if you have a particular pipe that has a certain temperature due to which the water is getting heated inside that pipe, the water flowing through that pipe is getting heated, in that case you would turn on energy equation. In that case you would apply for your wall a temperature and add that temperature to the wall, so that your simulation setup will be in such a way that it would represent the real condition where at a certain the pipe is at a certain temperature and it's heating up the fluid that is inside. So based on such conditions and different conditions, you can change your conditions. So for now we won't change anything. We won't make changes in anything in the wall. We would directly move to the solution part of it, where we would select the method of operation. Now based on different analogies, there are these four methods in ANSYS: simple, simplex, piezo, and coupled. I won't be going into details of this. So they are just mathematical formulations that are going to be applied, or a way of solving these iterative methods. Also, there based on each term, you can actually choose the method that you are going to solve for. Like for pressure, you can select second order method. So basically, second order means that it takes the polynomial orders and polynomial degrees into consideration while solving. So when you are solving for let's say partial differential equations, in that case you would have different orders. So one order means dy by dx, two orders mean d2y by dx square, or dy by dx bracket square. So based on such orders and degrees, you would be able to solve for many terms. So basically, the higher the order is, the better your accuracy is, and here you can actually limit that, because that would reduce your computational time greatly. So based on your accuracy, you would limit your solving part, and if you keep it as a second order, then in second order you would be limiting your term solution. So for that, you would be just selecting these primarily based on primary understanding of things, and you'd continue with your simulation. So based on that, also there are different for pressure-based conditions, there are different like solver methods or solution methods that are to be opted, but you can choose as second order. You can keep it the same and move on with the next one. So when you go actually here, the thing that I was mentioning about the convergence, right? In the monitors. So let me just back it up a little bit. So after the methods has been done, we would go straight to monitors to define our residual, to define our convergence criteria that I have talked about in yesterday's presentation. So residual is nothing but the difference of two successive outputs that is coming in. So the smaller the difference between two successive outputs, the higher your accuracy is. And we set it up as the difference should be 0.001. So it should be that small. Unless and until it's that small, your solution will not be converging, and you'd have to run for more iterations basically in order for the solution to converge. So once you have the solution converged, then only you would that basically gives you a verification or validation for your simulation that whatever changes that I have applied, based on that my solution is converged, and now I would have a significant accuracy in my solution, which is kind of acting as a proof for you. Still, it depends on what physics and what exact conditions that you have manually applied. So you have to be checking with those as well, because it will say here that it's converged, but in reality it actually might not be the case, because you have applied different set of conditions. So basically we generally keep the residual as 10⁻⁻⁶ for better accuracy, like 0.000001. So keeping it that small, and as you can see in residuals, here you would see that there are different equations. So in here we have continuity equation, x velocity, y velocity, and z velocity. So for these four equations, your solution will be solved. So for all those 4 equations, you have to separately set your residual criteria. For this, we have kept it as 0.001 only because it's a simpler simulation. Now, here, we choose when you go for initialization, when you double click on initialization, double left click on initialization, you'd be in your task page, this page will appear where you would have 2 options for initialization, like the hybrid initialization and the standard initialization. So hybrid initialization basically automatically initializes the solution and gives you 10, it will solve for 10 iterations and it will select its first guess. So before actually starting the simulation, you'd have to run for initialization because that will give you whether if you have some kind of error within these 10 iterations, you can easily rectify it at this point itself without having to go through the simulation. And once the error is rectified, then you can again reinitialize it and go for run calculation. So this is basically for selecting a first guess of a solution for a parameter. So as you can see below here in the console tab or console component, you would see all your solution parameters and how the equations are getting solved. This is your graphic parameter, which shows your mesh. And in here also, there will be another tab will be added, which is called as residuals, which we'll see. So here in the standard initialization, you'd have to actually manually add whether from where your solution will start, from inlet or from all zones, from outlet, wall. Based on these are basically zones that are defined from, and it will start computing from that. So you have to manually select majorly if the analysis requirements are such that you want to actually manually select, and if you have better like deep understanding of what your problem is and what you're defining, then that case we go for standard initialization. But for simpler cases or the cases that don't need that kind of attention, we use hybrid initialization to go forward with. So that if you have multiple inlets that you are going to choose from, then you go for standard initialization so that you can choose the inlets which you are going to start your calculation from, and from those inlets only it will start calculating. It will take the selections, or it will take the solution accordingly. Now once you click on initialize, it will show you this 10 entries below here, and we'll have random values which are calculated, not random values, basically they are calculated from the computer end, but they are based on that you'd see. So as I've told you, according to our first guess, according to our residuals, we wanted to keep the value in the ranges of 10 raised to minus 6. But as you can see in our first guess, at the 10th iteration below here in the console, you'd see the value is 3.09 dash dash into e raised to minus 11. That means 3.09 multiplied by 10 raised to minus 11. So it goes up to that level of accuracy. So that is your first guess for your calculation. That's how you can continue. That's how it continues the calculation from. So basically, this is your first value of first guess that the solution will continue from. Now, let's just back it a bit. In the run calculation tab, you would select the number of iterations here. Like basically, this is your limiter. This way you can limit your number of iterations. So the primary fix here, the primary idea here is to add the number of iterations. The reporting interval is not for steady state; it's for a transient state. So I won't be talking into that. But for your steady state, you'd apply the number of iterations as 100 and simply click on calculate, and it will start calculating, and it will start updating your results or whatever calculations that they are doing over here. And as you can see, you'd have a scaled residuals graph showing over here. So here the graph will be with respect to the residuals versus the iterations. So in your x-axis, in your y-axis, you will have your residuals, like the residual criteria, that is 1 into e raised to minus 6. So based on that only, it will have the scale will be adjusted based on that. And below here, you'd have your iterations, that is based on numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 till 100 it will show. So with this, you will be able to see that based on each iteration, each successive iteration, the value of each, the solution for each equation can be shown. The solution for each equation will be shown in this based on lines and different lines. Okay. So for your continuity equation, it's represented by white. and your x, y, and z velocities are represented by these three lines: the blue, the red, and the green. So basically, the red and the green are overlapping, so it's harder for you to see the red one. But there are two different lines for that are shown over here. So as you can see, my solution is converged within 30 iterations itself, because it's a very simpler simulation. And as you'll be seeing over here, at the 29th iteration, it shows that solution is converged. That means all of my simulation, all of my equations values that I have gotten for residual, the residual value, the difference between two successive terms for each and every equation, came below 10 raised to minus 3. So that's why, like, even here you can see, right, at this iteration itself, at 20th iteration, 1.09 into 10 raised to minus 3 is my residual, is my difference between my two successive inputs. So these are not values, these are not your solutions, but these are the difference of two successive iterations, two successive values that you got from the previous iteration minus the the former iteration to the latter iteration. Based on the difference, this value will be coming up. So it's in the range of minus 3s. It's obviously minus 6, minus 6, minus 6, so which is less than minus 3. So it satisfies our residual criteria, and that's why my solution is converged. So this is also depends on what convergence criteria you would set, and it basically it doesn't necessarily apply that whatever criteria you would set. Based on that, if it shows you the solution is converged, it's basically subjective. If I talk about it in a brief manner. Now my solution is complete, so I'll be closing this tab, and here there are some closing operations are done, and then it will be closed. Now, as you can see, both my setup and solution are updated after I have completed the solution, because the GUI for setup and solution are exactly the same. As I mentioned, in setup and in setup itself, you can continue with the solution. Now we'll move on to the results. So right click, edit, or double click. Anything would do. You'd go for editing the results tab, and here you'll be able to see the so I'll just fast forward it for now. Yeah. So here you'd see the results tab or results software, where this is the basic UI of your software. Here you'd see the outline tree in which whatever changes you are going to make, if you are going to add contours, vectors, streamlines. Based on that, here also there are different tabs for outlines, variables, expressions, calculators, right? So each tab has its own purpose to fill. Now we'll just see the basic idea of this tab, right? Here in the form of wireframe, our domain is represented. So basically, these are the only two edges in our model. So due to that, it is only shown these two edges for now. Now we will see how to add the contour. Now before that, we would add a surface group which highlights our wall, right? So basically, if you move ahead and location, you can see you can add different points, lines, planes, volume. Even you can add surface, or you can identify the surface group that was previously here with our domain, which shows, right? Now when I click on the any of it, it will show me a small pop-up to rename. And when I click OK, it will show the details of that pop-up over here at the left-hand side. So yeah, I just here. Now here you can change based on the domain, based on the location where you want to create. You can also change the color. I will come back to the color for now. We'll change the location to wall. I want to create as a wall. Now here you can change. You can keep it as constant, or you can keep it. You can change it from constant to variable. So what happens when you change it from constant to variable is your physical variables like pressure, velocity, all of them, and what their behavior is on the wall will be represented in a color coding, which we'll see in with the help of contours in just a bit. Okay, so when I click apply, it will show me my wall that is being shown. So this is just for visualization purpose. We are not doing it for any other purpose. Just to show you the idea to that you can actually identify each group by its surface, by its volume, or you can actually create plane line to actually see what is happening through that line or through that plane to better able to visualize. Now we will move on with the contours. So yeah, before that, just give you a clear understanding, like just a basic understanding of idea of calculators. In calculators, you can calculate any term at any particular face or any particular location. So here the function is selected, like if you are going for, and the location is inlet, that is this inlet surface, then all the values that have been calculated throughout at the different points or centroids that were representing the elements or small elements that were representing on the surface, all those values will be taken as area average using this area average function, and your value, your final value or solution will be shown in this result box over here at the inlet. And the variable that we are going to calculate for is pressure. So here also you can change for the pressure. As you can see, 0.0412.864 pascals is my pressure, is my area average pressure at inlet, as shown here. That can be calculated. Okay. Now again, moving on to the next part. Before actually we have to view a contour. So what I want to do from my perspective in this laminar flow is I want to insert a plane in between this pipe. So at the center of this pipe, I want to insert a plane, and I want to view my contours on that plane. So I'll go again in the location, I'll click on plane, I'll click OK, and here details of plane will be shown. So as you can see, in the method, I can change my which orientation or which plane I want it to be. Like if I want it to be XY plane, if I want it to be YZ plane, if I want to be ZX plane, I can select any of the plane based on that. Then I can select offset accordingly with the respective axis which is perpendicular to that plane. So if I'm selecting YZ plane, that is going to be this, that is going to be in line with my flow to the inlet, or in line with this axis. I don't know if you are able to see my cursor, but you will be able to identify, visualize in just a moment. So based on that, I can select, and if YZ is my plane, then X will be my perpendicular axis to that plane, and I can select the offset. So my YZ plane will be moving with on the axis X. So in either of the directions. So as you can see, when I click on apply, you'll be able to see that the plane is applied or plane is generated. So this is my YZ plane, and if I want to offset it, I can offset it in either of these directions, which are kind of horizontal in nature, or with respect to the pipe flow. Okay. Now my plane is created. So here, either same thing I can do. Either I can change the color of the plane by going to the color tab, like click on color, change it to variable, and the variable that I want to measure is not pressure but velocity. So I'll select velocity, and in range I would select it to be local range. Local and global is the difference. Basically means that local range will give you more accurate results on this plane. Basically it will calculate the contours based on this particular instance in space, this particular instance, and what is happening in space of this domain. It will show you in that regard. But with respect to the whole domain, how the contour looks like, in that case you would go for global option, global range. So it just defines the range in range which you want to calculate it for. So just making these few changes, you would be going for apply. So yeah, when you click on apply, you would see that this is my contour, and as you can see, towards this is the color palette, and this is where you'll be able to see the values that are representing the color coding. So the highest red means it's 1.333, that is a maximum velocity. E raised to -2, that means it will be 0.0133, that would be the velocity, and the initial velocity that we had given was 0.01, but it increased to 0.013. So basically, that is how it can be identified. Now, the values, that how it's gradually increasing, because you are starting from at initial point of flow, and based on applying all these continuity momentum equations in your x momentum directions, the fluid is moving until it reaches a fully developed flow. It will have variable velocity at the starting of the flow, and once it achieves the maximum streamline velocity, that is u max, it will have the fully developed flow. So this is kind of a transitioning flow. As you can see, that's why the color is changing from lightish yellow to red. Near wall, you would see that bluer shades are showing. The primary reason is because at the wall, the layer of the fluid that is there, it is going to be stationary, because it is highly viscous, or it's the layer that is, if you think at a micro level, it will, the layer of the fluid, if and that is the closest, or that is the nearest to the boundary, it will be sticking to the surface due to the viscous forces that are going to be applied, and due to that, it will show us zero velocity at the wall boundary condition. So all in all, my flow is accurately represented throughout. So this is how I can actually visualize the graphics. Now let's see for the pressure contours say on similar lines. Now, not pressure contours, we'll see the streamlines. So just a second. Yeah. So in streamlines, at the top, you'd see that you'd click on the streamline option that is shown over here. Basically, if you go over these options, that this is the first option that is above the turbo. It's called vectors. Next to it is contours. Next to it is streamline. So either you can use this contour option where you have to select the surface on which you want the contours to be, or you can actually define the surface and change the color of that surface itself from the properties. So either way, it can be feasible. For streamlines, we will just follow this option where you can click on streamlines, and the details of the streamlines are shown below here, where you'd be able to see the data. So you'd be changing it from here, like you'd be changing it to inlet, you'd be mentioning the specified number of points, that is 100, and apply. Basically, these are the number of points through which your streamlines will be calculated. So these are the fluid points. So random fluid points are generated by the software, and we are going to see how the streamline looks from this point. Okay, so when you apply it, it will show you these lines in this manner, and how the flow propagates throughout each of the lines, so through that particular point throughout the domain. Also, we can actually animate and how the particle flows from using the animation option over here, where I would select the streamline on option here with the quick animation option, making it as slow as possible for the space for the operation, because if I keep it as fast, it will just go very fast. So I'd keep it as slow. If I played, if I click on play button, and my particles, as you can see, are moving, right? And they will be able to show you at what particular instance your particle is attaining higher velocities, and you will get a general idea of streamlines throughout that, right? So this is how you can actually identify, and you can play the animations. So you can also play animations for your moving parts. So when you have defined the surface group for your blade, let's say, if you have a blade that is moving, fan blade or something, then it will actually be able to view that in this animation, using this animation. So that is also one of the cool things that you can actually visualize. So that was about the simulation. Now coming back to the ANSYS domain, you'd have to, after completing a analysis, you'd have to click on the save option to save your analysis. It's really important, because if you don't save, you won't be having the data that is calculated in your storage, and if you try to revisit, then you won't be able to revisit. So you have to save that by naming it anything you want. So all in all, we had discussed about these brief modules with the help of the case study and with the help of this small simulation. Now let's move on to the next topic of our discussion, which is introduction to cooling fans. So here I'll just give you a brief about what cooling fans are, its functions and its applications, and then we'll move on to the its simulation requirements and what are the basic requirements for the simulation, and then we'll quickly go through all the simulation, the complete simulation for that. Okay. So here basically a cooling fan is operated for cooling purpose, as its name suggests. So its function is one of the function is to cool the component and also to have it comfortable environment around that component, so it doesn't overheat and doesn't burn. Okay. So based on its sizes and based on the component, sizes vary. So it can go up to the picture that we are seeing at your left, or it can actually be as small as your computer cooling fan. So one of the examples is that your computer or PC cooling fan, which is a very small unit, which helps us keep our components cool. So majorly its applications are based on electronic components, because electronic components are heating. There is a lot of requirement for cooling for those components. Like the different servers are there that heats up too quickly. In that case, we have these cooling fans installed or cooling towers installed. Talking in terms of power plants or talking in terms of thermal nuclear plants, in that case, you would have to install a cooling tower, which actually provides the air to all the different segments or different components of throughout the plant, and different sections of the plant, via ducts and via different means to keep it cool. Now, we'll just briefly see how the radiator fan of a car looks like and what its general function is, and then similar model we'll be using for our analysis and how we are going to do the analysis. So basically, this is the cooling fan. Its overall casing or cooling fan shroud is there. The fan motor is mentioned. Its construction is basically in this way, that the fan is fitted over this motor, and through this motor it runs. It's fitted above the radiator to cool it down, to have that convection effect for your radiator, and that helps us cool down the liquid or the fluid that is flowing through the radiator, and which in turn helps us cool down the different engine components, or for that matter. Okay. So that is a general understanding of the cooling fan. Now, for a fan analysis, our objective is to simulate the flow field generated by an industrial cooling fan. So we are going to only focus on the fan part of it, and not the shroud, motor, and all the parts. So we are just going to focus on this particular part. So for this particular part, we're going to generate a domain. As this is an external flow simulation, we are going to generate a box around it, which constrains this fan, and which defines a domain through which it's going to rotate for. And then based on that, we are going to simulate it, and we are going to see how the simulation flow or flow field is generated. For that, we would need to do some geometric cleanup. We would need to set up the flow field. We would need to solve, and we need to visualize the flow. There are different objectives that require for our analysis. Now, for this analysis, we would need certain case input data. The primary data we need is inlet boundary condition, which I'm going to keep it as pressure inlet. Outlet boundary condition is also I'm going to keep it as pressure outlet. The speed of the fan is required here. That is, I would keep it as 3,100 RPM. Because in our previous simulation, we had given the velocity conditions, and we had given the inlet condition as velocity. The reason why we are going to pressure inlet, pressure outlet is because we have we don't know the actual speed of the wind that is going through the fan, right? Because it depends on the speed of the fan. That's what we are going to evaluate for. So instead, we are going to create a pressure gradient due to the rotation of the fan, and due to that pressure gradient, that is the inlet pressure and a difference between inlet pressure and outlet pressure. Using that difference, we will be able to identify, and through the software, we will be able to calculate the maximum flow rate achieved through that simulation, with the speed of the fan being 3,100 RPM. And from there, that is of primary analysis. That is how any kind of analysis with a moving part or with this kind of analysis is done, is where you initially identify. If you don't know what your wind velocity is, then you identify in this means, One of the means is this, where you would be calculating your maximum flow rate and using a maximum flow rate formula, area into velocity. Based on that formula, you'll be able to calculate the velocity of that discharge that you're getting. Okay, the maximum discharge that you're getting. So like volume flow rate. Now you need to have this, your working fluid will be air, and it will be at room temperature, and the number of iterations that we are going to solve it for is for 1000 iterations. So that is the primary data that I need for my simulation. The secondary data, I would need it if there were multiple components involved, like if I had a component that actually I wanted to visualize the cooling effect. In that case, I would apply the temperature conditions, I would add the temperatures parts and all those things. But for now, I'll keep it as simple as possible for you to understand. One more criteria is there, which is residual, which I have talked about in the ANSYS Fluent tutorial just now. So we'll keep it as 10 to the minus 6. Okay. Now we'll move on to our actual simulation. So to understand this simulation, primarily I have used two different softwares: this CAD software, CATIA software, through which I have actually constructed the part, and then I have imported this part to ANSYS. So primarily, why I have used this CAD here, and why I'm showing you this here, because it's simpler for me. It was simpler for me to edit or delete some unwanted components of this model, as what you're seeing here. That are incompatible for or unnecessary for our simulation, and based on our requirement of simulation, I have deleted it here itself for lesser complications in my ANSYS Fluent. So if you have access to your geometrical part, and if you have good command on both the softwares, the CAD modeling software and the ANSYS Fluent space claim software, then you can edit this particular part in either of those softwares. So primarily I have used this CAD model because this was easier for me. So yeah, when the primary details is in here in this model is, I'll just fast forward it for now. Yeah. So if I come here, if I come here, I only need the fan structure that is inside this particular fan. I don't need the outer covering that is covering this fan. I don't need this extra material that is shown over here. It's highlighted in orange over here. So I'm just going to one by one delete that. So I'll just delete it in this slower format I'll show you. Okay. And now I have my primary fan that I wanted to simulate. But there is one small problem. When if I'm going to import this primary fan as it is, then it has a hole inside it. And if I compare it with my actual simulation, there is supposed to be a bearing that's going to go in here, and the shaft fitting should have been there, which is going to support the fan, right? So I have to completely solidify this particular pocket. So I have to basically extrude that pocket and fill it completely for my simulation, so that I can have it as a simulation. Okay. So I would just do that in here, where I would use some different operations, and I filled it. Now I'll just save it as. Now here, as you can see, you can either export your geometry. So basically, I have constructed, I have filled up the inside hole that was there, and now I would go for the saving this component. So as in one of you had asked a doubt how we can transfer the file, right? So you can just click on save as. You can rename it anything you want, and in your save as type, as you can see here, you would have a .stp or stp format. You'd have other formats like the IGS format is also there. So based on these two formats are CFD compatible, so generally use any of the format can be working. Then you can just rename it and click on save. So basically it will take the converting data, some time to convert the data, and then you can easily import this geometry in your geometrical setup. So again, coming back to the ANSYS, where You drag the fluid flow fluent from here in analysis systems. But before that, as I wanted to make some geometrical clarifications or geometrical preparations to be safer side, I only drag the component system, the single component as geometry here. The reason is because if I drag an analysis system, then my geometry will be linked to my mesh. So sometimes it gives you some kind of warnings or errors, not all the time. It based on your operations. So it's always better to make whatever geometrical preparations or geometrical repairs that you are going to do in a standalone system in a standalone component before you going on to the analysis. So I'll just move on to the importing geometry. Basically, right click, import geometry, and click on the geometry. That's how the geometry will be imported. And once the geometry is imported, it will show you the like green tick as you are seeing in the screen. Now double click or either right click, left click, like right click or left click edit. You'll be able to move to the space claim, and now your geometry will be imported. The primary reason why we are going to do this is because there are some kind of errors or some kind of problems with the geometry that came in built from the design's perspective. It's not that the designer is at fault, but there are some additional components that come with a design, and from a CFD perspective, from an analysis perspective, those components are not needed. And that's the only idea why we delete some of the components of the geometry, and we fix some of the errors of the geometry, because when we are converting this file from CAD part to STP, in that conversion some of the data might not be accurately converted. So we have to clarify that data here, we have to repair that data here, and then move ahead with our analysis. So basically same thing will have this part body, in which we'd first go through repair options. So I would click on repair over here, and there are different options for different things. So you can just click on split edges to check if there are any split edges. You would see at the bottom it should show found 15 areas. Once you click on the split edges, it will show you the information that found 15 areas, and will highlight the areas that are split over here. So you have to first fix those edges by just clicking on this right tick mark button over here. When you click it up, all these errors will be fixed. All these areas will be fixed. And fixed problem areas you see. For extra edges, you do the same thing. For duplicates, you do the same thing. So each and every option that is mentioned over here, you would go one by one through these options. For checking the areas, and you'd see at the bottom, you'd see found like different areas or number of areas that are errors, that give errors, and you have to fix them. So primarily in exact edges, you would be just fixing up these inexact edges. And once you are fixing up all these problem edges or all the problem areas, you would be able to you would have all your geometry repaired. Also in prepare, you would also check for some of the interfaces or faces. Basically, repair is for edges and curves, and prepare is for surfaces, so that you can check for all these errors, and same thing you can do. Now once you once you are in the part body, you would be able to move you have to create two kinds of frames. Like one is rotating frame and the other is stationary frame. So the primary reason is why we do this is because according to our simulation, whenever there is a rotating part that has such complex geometry, as you can see, the fan blade is very complex. So when you are going for an actual simulation, what the software has to do is it has to identify the interfaces. It has to identify the contact regions of your rotating body and your stationary body, so that it can establish the connection, and so that it can work the solution accordingly. So when you are going to identify if there are multiple faces that are such as you are seeing in front of you, it will become very complex, and sometimes it becomes impossible for you to simulate the flow for rotating parts. So there is this way for it's called as a rotating frame approach, which researchers, scientists, and engineers use, like CFD engineers use, that they convert this part into a simpler geometry. Like how they convert it. So basically, they would create some Boolean operations over here so that they can capture the fan body as a surface inside of a rotating frame, inside of a different frame, and the rotating frame surface would be acting as a connection part for without stationary frame. So we basically create two different domains, or two different like domains is only domains you can say. So based on that, you would be at differentiating between rotating part and stationary part, which has less number of faces in connections with each other with stationary and rotating frame. So that interface that you are going to define will be simple and not such very complex. Basically, what I'm doing here is I'm arranging my body with the fan body with my origin axis. The primary reason why we have to do this, like align with our original axis, is because we have to like I'm just showing here that I have aligned it in with my the center origin, or the center origin of this world. The primary reason is why we do this, because your origin world from where you have imported this geometry is from, as I have imported the geometry from CATIA, it would be having a different origin, right? So it has a different component system, different coordinate system. So, and this software will have the different coordinate system. So based on that, there will be some, there would be this disconnect with your coordinate system. So you have to first align your body with your, align your fan body, or align your component with the origin. Now, once you align it, you would have to create the rotating frame. In here, you would create again a simple box or enclosure around this, which will be very much closer to this geometry, the edges of that box. So if I show you over here, just fast forward it quickly. Okay. So here you'd be able to see that I have created this box or surface, and then I'm going to extrude it, or I'm going to revolve it basically using the revolve option in the pull option. Okay. So now I'm just giving the dimensions with respect to the axis over here. And it should be pretty much closer to the actual rotating frame or actual turbine blade that you are going, the fan blade that you are going to rotate it from. The reason is because it has to be identified for rotating frame, and it has to give you the closer your interface is, the better it captures the rotating motion, and the better you get the accuracy from which you're intended from. So I'm just doing some CAD part from here, like I'm creating an enclosure, I'm defining the edges by using this move tool. Using this move tool, you can actually set the dimensions or shift the either of these edges according with your coordinate system. And then when I exit my workbench, it will create a surface out of that geometry. Now, when I click on pull, I would select the surface to revolve it. I'll click on this revolve option, and I have to give an axis around which this part will revolve. And when I selected the axis, click on full pull over here, then it will create a separate solid which separates from part body. Now, as you are seeing here, my solid is, my circular disc is different and my part body is different. Now I have to perform the Boolean operation to unify them, to delete the intersecting part and to create a vacuum for my where my blade is. The vacuum part will not be analyzed throughout this process. The part where you are seeing the material is going to be analyzed. Okay, so basically I'll use the combine option over here to click on this solid, my target body, from which I want to remove the material. I would select my part body to which in what shape I'm going to remove it. So when I click on my part body, it will create two different softwares. It would create two different models, right? As you can see, one is this, one is defining my fan, one is highlighting my fan, and one is highlighting my outer body, which has the fan in terms of vacancy. So we can check it with the respect of the section plane. You will have a better understanding of things. So as you can see here, you would my fan body is differentiated from my outer body. Basically, using the Boolean operations, I have separated those two bodies. Now I have to delete the fan body because that is a solid part and that I won't be needing for my simulation, as I am going to deal with the fluid part that is going to be around uh, that fan, which is represented by the other solid and is called as a rotating frame. So basically, I would be identifying my part, which is identifying my fan body, and I'm going to delete it. So I also would be deleting the part body that was previously imported, because I only need the rotating frame for this simulation, right? So I'd identify this part and I deleted that part. I'd also delete this part. Now I'd only be related with the, I'm only concerned with my rotating frame for now. So I'll be showing you how it will look. Um, Here you'd see that the vacancy is now, the vacuum is now created, right? Now this part won't be analyzed, the empty part that you are seeing, but the actual fan body or the shape of the fan is retained by doing this, and your connections that are going to, that I was talking about, are going to be established based on this surface, this circular surface that you are seeing, or the the front surface, the circular surface, and the back surface. Based on these surfaces, your connections will be made. So rather than having to follow through the connections of the complicated fan body. So this is the bypass part. This is a bypass method which we use to actually convert the geometry from uh, from falling, right, from giving us an error. So that can be done, but it has a if you even use this direct geometry, but it will be very difficult for you to establish the manual connections. You have to each and every small face you have to select, and there are hundreds of faces. There are small faces that are generated by the software, and you cannot select manually. So you have to be spending a lot of time in order to select all those faces and going ahead with the simulation. But in that case also, you would have to go ahead for that. Now again, I have to create a box around as a stationary frame, which for which I'm going to analyze it for. So I'll just fast forward this process. It's the same process, just that the upstream and the downstream dimensions are different, because your upstream dimension is lower in case of fans, because you are more interested in your downstream, because where the fan will blow the air right out of his this fan body. So what your region of interest would be largely concerned with the downstream rather than upstream. Upstream and downstream, basically it signifies that from the center point of your domain, the left hand side is your upstream, where the flow is coming from, and where the flow is going is called as downstream of the flow. So it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of visualization. So when I'm here, I'll just perform the Boolean operations again to remove unnecessary parts. Like as you can see here, 3 parts I've created in stationary frame, because it was a solid, and now the intersecting parts are differentiated with each part, and then those parts will be deleted, because we have already a rotating frame for us. We don't need the part in our stationary frame. We need only the part where the stationary frame is connecting with the rotating frame vacancy. So that's why I will be deleting these 2 components. And when I select this part and when I actually see the section view of it, you would see in my section view, it also shows me the rotating frame that was previously mentioned in the rotating frame component, and my stationary frame is also represented, and my vacancy of the fan body or impeller body is shown. So majorly this is how you do the geometrical cleanup. Now we'll quickly move to the meshing part, where yes. So here you'd be able to see that in connections tab, when you click on connections, you would see the contact region established. So contact region is established with respect to the simple surfaces rather than the complicated surface that was inside the rotating frame. So that was the only point to make this reference frame. Now, same thing will follow in the last video that we have seen. For the meshing, we'd go for finer mesh this time. We'd go for size function as adaptive. because there is very high complicated geometries involved, and the mesh has to be adaptive in that cases. And then after completion of the mesh, my mesh is completely generated. So this is an unstructured mesh. It has triangular or tetrahedrons in this mesh. So as you can see, that will be even in section planes, you can see the sectional view of your body, where you'll be able to see in detail how the how your mesh looks inside. Now I'll change the element size or keep it as and now I'll just like keep it as a fine and all. Now my all of my mesh is completely completed. Now here I'll just give the name selections as we have previously done. So here a couple of more names will be added, like the a couple of names like inlet, outlet, and wall will be there. But for rotating frame, we have to identify. Let me just fast forward it a bit. Yeah. When I create this named selections, I have to create it for the inside of the fan body, right? So just a second. Yeah. So basically, in my mesh translation is completely successful. In my setup, I would just show you the different setup that I do for this particular case. Now in here, the general conditions will be same, just that we would keep it as we would change only in the model based. So here we would change the model from laminar to K epsilon realizable and standard wall functions. This is the reason to capture the turbulence. Now, when we come to the cell zone conditions, we'll have two cell zones: rotating frame, stationary frame. In rotating frame, we will add the material as air. Like we don't have to change or add any material because our operation material was air. Here we change the speed to 3100 rpm. The reason why I have kept it as minus is to identify the direction. So based on what your coordinate system is and where your inlet is situated, and from where your actual rotating, from that reference, your rotation of the fan is identified using right hand thumb rule. Whether it will be clockwise or it will be anti-clockwise, based on that you have to identify and you have to add it. So from as my rotation axis is z and my direction is if I consider with respect to the right hand thumb with respect to positive x, then my rotation would be in case of in this case my rotation would be clockwise, right, from positive. That's why and I want it to be anti-clockwise because my flow is going into negative z directions. As you can see, the flow is from left to right. So that's why I have kept my speed as minus 3100 rpm. So this is the for the rotating frame zone, the changes that you're going to make. For stationary, there are no changes made. Just click on OK. When you move on to the boundary conditions, you'd be moving here. Also, one more thing, you can also change the units from at the top right. You'd see below the display info units, you'd see the units tab where you can change the units from radians per second, degree per second, rpm, based on what your units you are working with for the rotation. Then we'll move on to the boundary conditions, where we'll specify each and every boundary condition. For inlet and outlet, we'll specify the pressure. Like for inlet, we'd have default pressure. For outlet, we'll have 1 bar as pressure, outlet pressure. Then only those two changes we are going to do, and not anything else. And else in which in the solutions tab, we'll keep everything same. We'll keep the residuals as 1:6, as I've told you. Here a couple of more equations will be added, like K and epsilon equations. Both equations will be added that are specifically solving for turbulence flows. And I just keep it as different things. I will just move on to we'll move on to the initialization part is completed, as you can see below the console, and we'll move on to the calculation part. So once you click on run calculation, you would have your calculation running for that. Okay, for 1000 iterations that you have set up. Now I have already done this analysis previously, so I'll just move on to the results part, where you'll be able to see how my flow will visualize. Okay, so here again, similar things you would be doing. You'd be just going through these streamlines. You'd click on the contour streamlines, and then you'd select the from inlet you are going to compute it from. You select the number of points. Here I have established as 200 number of points to give a better visibility and with better clarity. And then you'll be able to see the animation for this. So for animation part, same thing will follow. We'll just click on animation, quick animation, streamline, click it slow, play. So here you'll be able to see a stationary animation you are going to see as we are going to run it is in a steady state analysis. And we have not established time step animation or keyframe animation. We have only established the quick animation. So that's why it's the fan is stationary for here for now. And here you'll be able to see how your particles will move after this flow. So due to the pressure difference, the air is getting sucked from this inlet, as we did not have established our inlet over here. We just mentioned it as to be pressure inlet. We did not give any velocity to the flow. Actual flow, we flow from this point of view, it was stationary. As you can see, the velocity is mentioning at 0 at the inlet. The reason is because the flow is happening because the rotation of the fan, and that's why it's showing it in this manner. So yeah, now that's how you can see. And here also you'll be able to see different vectors. So similar thing that you have done for the streamlines should create vectors. You'll be able to visualize the vectors, and how this will just generally show for the 10,000 particles and how their vectors are looking like, how their flow is looking like. And basically they are parallel, or they are in tangency. These vectors are in tangency to their streamlines. So each particles will show you how it will go. Basically your air will be sucked due to this, and recirculation will be happening through the fan, and the fan will be continuing the flow. So you'll be able to see that direction of the particles and how they are moving using this arrow marks. Okay. So that was the basis, and that was the basic understanding of this simulation. That was all from my side. So I thank you all for patiently listening to me, and I hand over to our moderator for now.
Thank you, Mr. Hemant, for this wonderful talk and clear explanation. I would like to request participants to, if they have any question, to put it in the chat box. Hello guys, if you have any questions, can put it in the chat box. Is there any questions? Okay, sir. So there is one question by Harris. Can the simulation record the temperature of the fluids to see the effectively of a model?
Yes.
Effectively.
Actually, was the question regarding the fluid transfer, if it actually captures the temperature or not, like temperature values? Is that a question? Yeah. Okay. So, so to give you a direct answer, I have not. Hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah. So I might have lost connection there. I'm sorry. So I was just saying that when we are going to require for simulation requirements as temperature, in that case you have to turn on the energy equation. In that case, you have to specify in your boundary conditions that this particular boundary will have this set of temperature, and according to that reference temperature, how the temperature will affect the fluid, it will calculate based on the temperature term energy equation it will solve, and you will have your different temperature distribution throughout the domain for the fluid. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay, is there any questions? Okay, one more minute. If there's any questions, can post it. Okay, looks like there is no more questions. So, guys, if before we end that session, I would like to inform you all that there are some changes on the dates and time for the data analysis and electric vehicles topics. For the data analysis, the topic will only be consist of one session. It will be taking place on Friday, 6 to 7:30. I will send an email for this one. And regarding the electric vehicles, both sessions will take place on Saturday from 4 to 8 p.m. due to some problems with the speakers. If you have any problem regarding it, you can comment in the feedback, which I will be posting later, and we'll be reviewing your comments. Now, Mr. Mang would like to talk. Mr. Mang.
He will be joining in just 3 minutes. So kindly wait for patiently for those 2-3 minutes.
All right. Yeah, there is no sessions tomorrow, and Thursday the session will be on Friday for the data analysis, and the sessions for the electric vehicles will be on Saturday from 4 to 8 p.m. We hope there will be no problem with you guys. Also, if you guys have any questions, you can post it now in the chat box. Yeah, I will send later. Just Mr. Umang would like to talk like for 2 minutes, then I will be sending the Google form, the feedback form.
So Umang sir has just joined, so he'll be taking over and he'll be continuing. Hello, Umang sir.
Yeah, thanks, Hemant. Thanks, Ahmed. Very good evening, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed the sessions. You guys had a good time. So with this, my name is Umang Surana. I am co-founder at Elite Techno Groups, and as you guys know, we are based out of India. And our main motive is, or the mission is, that we should be taking engineering skills which are being required in the industry to each and every engineer globally. And that's where we got interacted with the mechanical engineering team from UCSI, and we are glad that we could connect with them and take this session. So, in this quick 2 to 5 minutes or 7 minutes, quick overview on this part, what I would be doing is I will be giving you a demo on what Elite Techno Groups, or we call ETG, is. Okay, what kind of programs we have related to computational fluid dynamics, related to CAD design, related to vehicle dynamics, which you could opt for. And interestingly, we got in touch with UCSI via NOS. NOS has taken one of our ETG program and he connected with the team, and that's where things started. Okay, so I will give you a quick idea on what Elite Techno Groups or ETG is about. So I'm sharing my screen over here. Okay, so this is us, elitetechnogroups.com, and that's we are all about engineering plus ETG equals to industry ready. Now, if you would be looking us on a mobile phone, we would look differently. You could see these programs in the menu. We have good programs mainly on automotive. That's where we come from. Automotive, CFD, mechanical engineering related. We do specialize in EV as well as data science MLAI also. Okay, so I will give you a quick walkthrough on our vehicle dynamics program. Then electric vehicle I will leave because you have another session on electric vehicle. It would be good to be introduced then. And I will be giving you quick ideas on our various design programs and CFD programs. So, okay. So if I look at first to start with, let me go to a vehicle dynamics program. Okay, so this is one of the program which we actually started with. Okay, and because when we started helping students on the industrial skills, we realized even globally there are hardly any programs that cover, in a systematic order everything about an automotive in terms of what is required and what should they learn and all those aspects. How we create a program, we talk to folks who are already in the industry. Okay, they come back and tell us that, okay, these are the requirements for a fresher or for someone with a 1 or 2 years of experience in the industry, and these are the things if a student know, that would be good, we could hire those folks for in our company. So when we created a program, we spoke to people from Mercedes, Toyota, and Honda to help us create this program. Now, when we were creating the program, we realized those guys suggested that for these roles, if someone take the program, this would help. Okay, so skills which are acquired are mentioned here. Okay, how would it help in the three key things for job, for higher studies? If you are looking for, if you are already a higher study student, you could still get benefit of during college what you could do with this. Otherwise, how does it help in jobs and higher studies? How does the program work? Pretty simple. You learn, you implement, you compete because we do give the top students a letter of recommendation, okay, and a certificate at the end of that. So what kind of certificate or documents you get? You get a certificate, you get a letter of recommendation, and you get a project report. Now, everything has their own benefits, which are mentioned here. Also, since it's a nano degree program, we have our programs called internship cum training also. And even in nano degree, we do give internship certificate because we do give projects in this program. So many students who couldn't get internship in India, at least that happens a lot, because given that the volume of students is high, internship opportunities are less, people take up projects and they want to learn from there. So we do have a lot of projects under the program which help you learn a lot more, and that's where we give you an internship certificate which could help you even in your grades or credits. One key thing is all of our program comes with 100% guaranteed money back. Reason being that we believe our students, belief on us and them spending money with us is of high value. So if anyone who say that we didn't like the program in 10-15 days, we return the money back. Thankfully, the students who have asked for this is almost zero after teaching 1 lakh plus students. So because the kind of programs we give are unique, and on top of that, the kind of content we help students with and the pricing we charge is very minimal. Okay, so say for example, right now we are charging $280 or $205 for students. Now, as I speak now, we are running a festive offer on the program, because in India right now there's a huge festival coming up and a lot of things around that. So we are offering a 50% discount on any program for next 8 to 9 days. So you would be just spending say around $140 on any of the programs. Okay. Uh, so that's where the learning would be, and that's what we say, the kind of learning we offer and the kind of amount a student pay, it's a bit unparalleled. And if students still don't find it worth, we are ready to, refund everything. So if any of you are interested in any of our program, I would encourage you to explore that. We have good programs on computational fluid dynamics. You already had a session on this, which you got some learning. Okay, to go deep about any of the program. This is one program which goes to a lot more depth when it comes to turbo machinery, when it comes to industrial application. Okay, so this is a very good program on CFD which you have, and a lot of things are mentioned from the flow. You work on NSYS and all those aspects, which you can check out our modules. And again, the pricing is mentioned over here. Since CFD is a bit high-end program, it's charged at $307, which would, after the discount coupon you could get here on the program, which is 50% off, you would be paying only $150. Okay. We have also program on SolidWorks, CATIA, on engineering design and product design. Again, the fields which are most required or popular in the space of engineering and mechanical design today. Okay, be it surface modeling, be it part modeling, sheet metal modeling, all those things are very well covered in these programs. Okay, so if you have any questions on any of the programs, I would like to take them up right now. Else, I would encourage our students to explore this, and yeah, feel free to ask us anytime if you have any questions on that. So first of all, was it all clear? Did you understand, the proposition we help students with, or are there any questions on that? If there are any questions, you could ask me. And yeah, I will drop the
you can also,
message.
guys, you can open your mic. You can open your mic to ask Mr. Umang.
Thanks, Ahmed. Uh, where's the chat option here? I was thinking of dropping the website link as well as the coupon in the chat. Ahmad, is it possible for you to
Guys,
put it in
if there,
the chat?
yeah,
The web.
can send me.
I cannot see the chat option. Is it available for me?
Can send me on WhatsApp, then I will post it in the
Sure,
chat.
I would just send it on WhatsApp.
Because do you have any questions?
Send it on the WhatsApp.
Right, guys, I have posted the website. Thank you, Mr. Umang and Mr. Hemant for this wonderful talk, and thank you for participants who attended this talk. Now I would like to ask all participants to turn on their cameras to take a group photo. Please fill in the feedback form for the attendance and e-certificates purposes, and I will be posting now the feedback form.
Perfect. Thank you, everyone. I will take a leave. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. That was a lovely session, lovely to interact with you guys. So have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Right, guys. Thank you. You can close the webcam now. Okay, so the feedback form is up now. Thank you, guys. And if you have any questions, can drop me in the chat or you can email me also. Thank you for joining us today and see you all in the next session. Have a good day.